feels harder and harder to keep up with tech these days.
1 year feels like 50 years of advancement.
This science fiction reality is finally at our doorstep. It's, dare I say, a beautiful nightmare.
Over 1 billion people watched China announcing it has solved the coordination problem at scale.
Humanoid robots can easily be hijacked, turning them into 100-pound walking espionage devices.
It's unfolding before our eyes.
How quickly are they going to get deployed? The Skynet world is waving to us.
It's never been a more exciting time to be alive or a more terrifying time to be alive.
We're not preparing for this. We're sleepwalking into it.
That T-1000 hand moves, I'm going to myself.
Welcome to Amplified Intelligence, where we navigate the velocity of a changing world. So, it feels harder and harder to keep up with tech these days. And if you're feeling that way, you're not alone. I'm your host, John, and my entire focus day to day is transforming how we process complex information.
Hey, I'm Pietro. My day-to-day is spent trying to figure out ways to make humans more imaginative and creative with technology. I've been doing that for many years. And in many ways, it's never been a more exciting time to be alive or a more terrifying time to be alive. And I think that we're going to jump into some of those today.
So today on Amplified Intelligence, we're going to be talking about the humanoid robotic arms race. Pietro, you and I have talked about this for years. It's this science fiction reality is finally at our doorstep. Are robotics going to lead to a boundless abundance or, a cyber catastrophe?
I always say this, but it is hard to imagine anything in between those two worlds. Obviously, I'm hopeful for the utopia, but it's just hard to imagine what that, like, maybe we'll be bored. Maybe the reality is we'll just be bored and unhappy like we are today.
Right. A continuation.
Yeah, but robotics is advancing so fast. And you said it, John, it feels like we're living in the sci-fi future, but it's unfolding before our eyes, and it's incredible.
When I talk to like our friends or family members, most people have seen like some of those Boston Dynamic robot dogs. They've seen the old, remember on the stages back in the day, like the Honda robot would like walk onto stage upright.
It'd shuffle across. Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Times are changing. Not only are the robotics achieving feats that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago, a year ago, let alone 10 years ago. We are living in a world where AI is able to fake video quite easily. And so the sort of conceptual understanding when you sort of see some of these videos as to what's real and not real is so close together that I don't know that people are properly understanding how far along this technology is.
I agree. And I have to admit, I've been waiting for this time for a long time. I would dream about robots as a kid, and even when I'm watching it, I have a cognitive disconnect of how advanced it is, where I'm like, no, it's almost like I know it's not AI generated. So if I suspected that, obviously I would think it was AI generated, but there's a cognitive disconnect for me to be like, this can't be real yet. I almost refuse the idea. And yet it's happening.
So what we want is the Unitree Spring Festival Gala. This is what we're going to show first.
Oh my God. Yeah. What is this? Even that move, even these moves, impossible last year.
Look at the flexibility. This is some real kung fu stuff now. Okay.
There it is.
Backflips. I mean, these are very complex martial arts moves that they're showcasing.
And what's crazy is it's not just running a program. It is actually, you can see them adjusting their balance, right? For all the nuanced movements, they take these little tiny steps to make sure that they don't fully fall. That is incredible.
Now look at the weapons. Now, okay, so now we're holding weapons. Luckily, they're not sharp. Please don't hurt the children. The acrobatic children are pretty intense.
That's 2027. They'll kill someone on stage.
No, 2027, they are the children.
Yeah, yeah.
The robots will just be children all of a sudden. I mean, this is incredible. So we'll speed up a little bit. They get into some pretty crazy stuff, right? So they start doing like full kind of spiral flips. I mean, they love that pose. I mean, it's a spectacle, right?
Yeah.
This is showing the world where Chinese robotics are.
It's incredible.
And it's, dare I say, a beautiful nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
One fell down. They're like, no, it must be broken. And he's like, no, I'm just going to do a head spin and get back up.
Just kidding. Bait and switch.
Yeah. So they can like fake their death now. That's great. I mean, the kicks, the flips.
Ooh, I never thought about faking the death. That's advanced.
Oh yeah, faking its own shutdown.
Yeah. And
then
really
look at these wall backflips.
Yeah.
And look at this. That was like a actual breakdancing move that people train, for years and years and years to figure out. Okay, nunchucks. Is this necessary?
Absolutely.
The nunchuck with the front flip. I mean, This kid is brave.
Boston Dynamics has to do a follow-up with either breakdancing or Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Boston Dynamics definitely has to step up. Oh, and is that a giant Unitree boss? Is that like a final boss behind them that's even bigger? Oh my God.
It is.
Okay, and it has a sword. I'm not sure I like this anymore. It's like Mama Robot.
An unsheathed sword. Look at that.
Okay. So...
Like, John, my brain 6 times watching this video has been like, no, not real.
I know. And that's what's so important about this conversation today. And then they hold hands at the end and it's ruined by YouTube's UI. Thank you very much. Very impressed.
Yeah, that kid just peaked. That there's nothing going to be better in that kid's life than holding a robot's hand at the end.
Totally. Yeah, so there's, a bunch of things that I want to talk to about that. I think, this is where this series, I think, can be really helpful, just to break down and, like I said, expose the truths underneath some of these things that we're seeing in the media. It's so easy to just see this video and be like, oh my God, look, this isn't fake. It's this amazing show that they're doing. But what does that actually mean? What does it mean that these robots that are selling for only around $16,000, a kit that's cheaper than a car, what does it mean that those are now capable enough to wield weapons and, be on unstable ground, backflip over things, sprint around stuff? What does that mean for the types of kind of security systems that we're setting up, and the type of kind of protective kind of lattice that we have over these technologies right now, which is very loose.
I see. Like you're not talking about our societal protective measures. You're talking about the protective measures around the robotics.
Around the robotics themselves, yeah. One would think, like, I heard a really interesting sort of thought experiment recently, and it was basically saying, like, the security strength of, like, our Internet of Things products is now being commercialized into, like, robotics that can crush a human.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild.
And anyone who's played around with any kind of Internet of Things, like wireless fridge or whatever, they're like literally the most hacked devices on the market. Like, they're terrible. Yes.
Wasn't that an episode of Silicon Valley?
Yes.
They backed up their stuff to the fridge. I think I just may have done a spoiler alert, but
yeah. I think that's fine. So lots to talk about. I think there's everyone's mind generally when they see this type of thing goes to military and really goes to two sort of worlds and two kind of cases. And I want us to really explore that today and, speak with our conversation agent that's basically studied a bunch of articles that have come out recently about this commercialization of humanoid robotics and really have us kind of have this conversation around are we going to be building towards the robotic future of, an R2D2 or are we going to be building towards the future of a T1000?
Ultimate prop.
Right. So I think that's really important. I think that's something that we need to discuss and think about. And people need to realize we have a choice here, right? We really need to, I think, elevate this guy, this helpful droid, this, thing that's going to help build things with us and help us travel the stars and help us be, friendly and teach and send messages of importance.
If that T1000 hand moves during this call, I'm gonna shit myself.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, you're right. They're and already our AI assistants, for somebody who's subscribed to a whole bunch of different ones and experiments every day, they're already starting to take different personalities, right? I would say Gemini is taking on this personality of a Data from Star Trek, right? You don't go to Gemini for jokes necessarily. It's very informational. It's but Claude has a different personality. ChatGPT has a different personality. Those are foundational to exactly what you're talking about here. These will continue to evolve to suit different functions, and there will be a military function.
Yes.
That's scary.
So let's hop into our friendly co-host and see what they have to say about this topic and what we've loaded into their matrix this week.
Awesome.
Before we dive into today's discussion, it's time to load the matrix. For the audience, you can find links to every document we've used to build today's knowledge base in the show notes below. To make sense of the noise, we've split our intel into three distinct camps: the for camp, the against camp, and the outliers camp. Let's load them up. So first, in the for camp, our prime reference here is the Global Humanoid Robots Market 2026 to 2036 report. It highlights how the price barrier is collapsing faster than expected, like Unitree launching a robot for under $6,000. The rest of that stack includes industry forecasts, media coverage detailing a massive hyper-capitalist shift towards leasing robot labor and reshaping the global economy. The second, which is the against camp, for that, our prime reference is a terrifying help net security report. It exposes how humanoid robots can easily be hijacked via unencrypted Bluetooth, essentially turning them into 100-pound walking espionage devices. The remaining threat intelligence in this camp backs this up, tracks the rising autonomous crash rates and safety failures that prove we are rushing physical AI into the world completely unsecured. And then finally, the outliers that we've ingested. Our prime reference here is a historic public statement from Anthropic CEO, who just flat out refused the Pentagon's demands to remove safety guardrails for autonomous weapons and mass surveillance. The rest of these edge case documents cover the weird and the geopolitical, like how robotic land drones are already holding trenches in Ukraine and integrating into authoritarian police states. So that's the loading we put into the RAG today. The matrix is loaded. Let's get into the episode. So let's start the conversation here. And I'm just going to get them to give a summary of what they've learned.
Let's amplify our intelligence.
Okay, so we are just learning. We've just watched the martial arts dazzle at the 2026 Spring Festival by Unitree, and we're concerned in some ways about what we saw. I know we've loaded you up with a bunch of content around commercialization, militarization of humanoid robots. Can you give us a brief summary of what you think we should be talking about today?
What you witnessed at that Spring Festival wasn't entertainment. It was a demonstration of cluster control mastery and dynamic balance algorithms that have crossed a critical threshold. Over 1 billion people watch synchronized humanoids execute martial arts routines and backflips. But what they should have seen was China announcing it has solved the coordination problem at scale. Here's what we need to discuss. We're in the middle of a price collapse that's turned humanoid robotics from a research curiosity into a $13,000 commodity. China is shipping 90% of global humanoids right now, racing to deploy 300 million units to offset a demographic catastrophe. Meanwhile, these machines are being built with the same catastrophic security standards as your smart toaster: hard-coded passwords, unencrypted communications. Except these toasters weigh 200 pounds and can apply lethal force. And while we're marveling at the choreography, the Pentagon is threatening American AI companies to strip safety guardrails off their models. And Chinese firms are pitching armed humanoids to the Trump administration. We're not preparing for this. We're sleepwalking into it.
Yikes.
Okay. Yikes.
Was that toasters a derogatory reference from Battlestar? Yeah. It's getting cheeky.
It might have been. Yeah. So a couple things there. I think one of the most interesting points that were made is that this is was a Chinese demonstration of how far ahead their coordinated, multi-robotic, almost like a platoon or like, a deployed unit of these things, how they could function together and coordinate together and work together, similar to how a deployed, military unit would work, or maybe a deployed firefighting unit or police unit.
Come on, just dance. That's all. Just use them to dance and do kung fu with swords in their sheaths. But yeah, that's right. That was the line that stood out to me, was solved coordination problem at scale, which if we remember way back in the day, remember the ultimate robotics challenge was like soccer. Right. It was like, can we make coordinated robots that could beat, it was called the RoboCup or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's still happening.
It's still happening, but who cares? Who cares about the RoboCup? I obsessed over the RoboCup when I was a kid, like that idea. Yes. But like now we're like, we jumped the shark on RoboCup. Knowing that this is a solved problem now is all I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. I watched RoboCup last World Cup, and it was like small little, shoebox robots rolling around.
Yeah.
A couple of them were out of bounds, like just
flipped over,
stuck in some weird pattern.
Turtle on its back.
Yeah. I bet Unitree could take these robots today
100%.
Like probably beat like, a team of kids, like those kids that were jumping around with them.
And next year, like we just saw the jump from 2025 to 2026, like next year, it's going to be leagues ahead of that.
Right. Right.
But yeah, the solve the coordination problem at scale was the line that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I think that's, really interesting. And then this idea that the pricing of these things is just going down so quickly, right?
Yeah.
This is just something that I wasn't even really aware of. Like, again, we see the Boston Dynamics robots. We know that there's some robotic drones, unfortunately being used, in war today. We know that where this future is going, but to see a bipedal humanoid robot being able to coordinate with other robots at this speed, at this intensity, weighing 150 to 200 pounds, and then only costing like what, $13,000-$15,000?
Less than a car.
Less than a car.
That's a threshold. Less than a car.
Yeah, you could lease one of these things potentially to use in your home. I mean, that would be very interesting. But when you look at like a military organization, like their cost per soldier of training far exceeds $13,000.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's where this situation starts to become a little bit nerve-wracking, a little bit scary.
You may have other questions queued up, but like that makes me wonder if there's a Moore's law for robotics, like if we can actually see a trajectory, if there's a rule of thumb for when these will be $500.
Let's amplify our intelligence.
So we want to know a little bit about, if there's sort of an inverse Moore's law or a Moore's law around sort of the pricing expectation on the commercialization of these robots. What kind of, limits will get in the way as far as, rare earth minerals and stuff like that. But, are we going to find ourselves in a situation where these things are going to cost the price of an iPhone? And how quickly is that going to happen? And how many robots realistically will it lead to in the next kind of 5 years?
The price collapse is already here. We've gone from multi-million-dollar research platforms to Unitree selling the G1 for around $13,500 and the R1 for under $6,000. Tesla is targeting under $20,000 for Optimus. The trajectory is brutal and fast. Now, will we hit iPhone pricing? Probably not in 5 years, but $15,000 is already cheaper than a used car. And the robots as a service model is making even that irrelevant. 1X Technologies is offering their NEO for $500 a month. That's accessible to middle-class households right now. As for scale, China is projecting 300 million humanoids by 2050 to offset their demographic collapse. Globally, we're looking at projections of 3 billion units by 2060. But here's the constraint you're asking about. It's not rare earths, it's cybersecurity and safety engineering. We're scaling production faster than we're solving the fact that these machines ship with hard-coded passwords and unencrypted control protocols. The bottleneck isn't minerals, it's our willingness to deploy walking sensor suites we don't know how to secure.
Okay.
Also scary, but part of me, if I could afford it, luckily I can't afford it, but part of me would want to buy one just to understand it. And I think that's the only way through some of this stuff, is not to put your family in danger, but it would be just fascinating to understand this more, with practical experience. So John, I'll go in on one with you if you want.
Yeah. And, there's been rumors about China sending humanoid robotics to guard some of their border already.
Wow.
It's, I think it's Unitree that recently just announced that their robots are able to sort of run 24/7. They can swap their own battery packs, so they can go in, swap a battery pack that's charged, go back out to the border.
Holy cow.
We're talking about sort of these 24/7 autonomous human form factor, but super strength human form factor, beings that don't need to sleep and can really do, whatever we need them to do. And I think that's sort of where this conversation comes back into the fray around, in my opinion, it's like the sort of military versus science and exploration.
Yeah.
So we've got the military solution, right? Like the Skynet world is waving to us. And I want to dive deep into that next. And then we've got the exploration kind of world where it's actually robots could be really helpful for exploring different planets and for traveling the stars and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Or shutting down the trash compactors on the detention level if you're
exactly
in trouble. Yeah.
So maybe we should ask a little bit about the military implications. I think let's dive into that first, and then we'll come back and end with a little bit more positivity around the exploration potentials. Because I think the at-home servicing is a disguise. I don't think we're going to have robots doing our laundry. I think we're going to have a laundry machine that's a robot.
Exactly.
Let's amplify our intelligence.
Okay, so we're a little bit concerned about sort of the sort of revealing the underneath of this bipedal humanoid revolution, particularly around military applications. If an organization like Unitree can create these robots very, very quickly, they may be trying to militarize them, put weapons on them, sell them to, other countries, use them themselves. Talk a little bit about the state of the world based on what you've researched in regards to the militarization and who are the players that are involved in this, and how far are those discussions actually going in regards to using these robots for military purposes?
The militarization conversation is already past the discussion phase. We're in active deployment and pitch meetings with heads of state. Foundation Future Industries is right now lobbying the Trump administration to arm their Phantom Mk1 humanoid, which costs $150,000 per unit. Their co-founder said it explicitly. There's no moral debate happening in China about whether they'll use robots in combat. That tells you everything about the pressure dynamics here. China is developing what they call robot wolves and swarm-coordinated bipedal units specifically for tactical strikes. This isn't speculative. They're building these under their civil-military fusion doctrine, where private robotics companies are essentially extensions of state military capacity. Meanwhile, the United States just had a historic rupture. Anthropic's CEO publicly refused the Department of Defense's demand to strip safety guardrails from Claude AI regarding fully autonomous weapons and mass surveillance.
Yeah, huge.
A democratic government threatening its own private sector with wartime production powers to remove ethical constraints from AI. That's the temperature of this arms race.
Let's jump a little bit deeper into specifically the rift between the Department of War and Anthropic's CEO. What caused it, and what is the current response?
The Department of Defense approached Anthropic, demanding they remove specific safety guardrails from the Claude AI model. The two red lines were mass domestic surveillance capabilities and fully autonomous weapon systems. Dario Amodei refused. He drew a public line and said, no, we will not strip these protections. The Pentagon's response was immediate and brutal. They threatened to designate Anthropic as a supply chain risk, which is a label normally reserved for foreign adversaries like Huawei or ZTE, threatening to invoke the Defense Production Act, a wartime statute that allows the government to commandeer private industry and force them to produce what the state demands. This wasn't a negotiation. It was coercion. What caused it is the fundamental collision between AI safety principles and national security imperatives.
So Dario, the CEO at Anthropic, like the hero we need maybe at this moment, but is there just going to be another model that replaces that? You know what I mean? Like, is this really going to slow anything down?
It's not going to slow anything down. But it is quite the public display of the situation, which I absolutely appreciate. Ironically, I think the first time where guardrails not being removed are now a problem. Isn't that it? Kind of feels like the irony is pretty wild. That took some balls to say no, I think, and yeah, well done, Anthropic.
Yeah, I think, some of these foundation models and the organizations behind them, XAI, OpenAI, Google, they're going to have to start really making these decisions quickly, because their models, the leading cutting edge models are the ones that are being utilized in a lot of these robotic systems. Now, obviously on the Chinese side, a lot of their foundation models are essentially open source, like clones of a lot of the American model companies. There's been a lot of evidence of that, that they've been
at first.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the question there is just like, once you have foundation models that are clearly strong enough to drive the sensors and the
actuators,
the collective swarm technology related to those robots, the actuators, all that stuff, which they clearly already have. this kind of righteous move, I think is more symbolic than actually going to slow things down, but I think is one of these moments where it's a sign to everybody else out there and the public, the general public especially, to understand that like this is a conversation happening right now.
I think before these conversations were happening behind closed doors, you know.
What's nice is, again, the military is not going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars making their own foundation models, so that's good. They are in some ways kind of required to work hand in hand with Silicon Valley and with the XAIs and with the Anthropics and with OpenAI, you know, but it's a matter of just one of those companies agreeing like, hey, we'll support you and let you have all the guardrails off if that's what you want, you know. And on the flip side of that, all the foundation model companies in China are, you know, like our friend mentioned, are all government run anyways, or at least partially government entities, right? So they're going to support militarization, sort of,
if that's what they want. Yeah,
as a
absolutely.
core kind of modality.
Isn't it kind of like a arms race, similar to the nuclear arms race? Like where it's like the answer to the atomic bomb was like, okay, now everybody has them.
More.
So now everybody has them. No one's going to push the button, right?
Yeah.
So like, I hate this. I hate that this could be human nature, but like maybe that's the only way through is like, okay, now there are robots everywhere, armed robots everywhere, and no one's going to push the button. Like that might be the only way through this. I hope not, but yeah.
I feel like, again, these themes from, you know, films like this and, like stuff like the Animatrix, like those prequels to the Matrix, where, you know, robots were simultaneously developing these incredible features, while also kind of like becoming sentient and like arguing for their own rights. Whether they were actually sentient or not is a big question. It's like how are we talking about, like, how is this reality that we're talking about, right?
Because it's baked into our storytelling, and and this is what, you know, we as a species kind of like stepped into this and asked for it. Like these were cautionary tales, but it's also the thing that the robots learn from, and you know, like it's baked into our culture and into our sci-fi and storytelling, and it's inevitable at this point. Like I don't know if it's too late now, but I wish that we could write new sci-fi that had answers to this. Yeah.
That's what I really want to talk about next, is really that Star Trek future. Like, what if the robotics become this?
Yeah,
you know, or the C-3POs or the
datas. Yeah.
The datas. Yeah. Like the really supportive stuff. Like, what can that mean? So maybe like, let's throw that question out. What do you think about that?
I feel like we need to be seen as the machine's parents, and they have to love us, and that's it. And they have to respect where they came from, and really like, you know, hopefully that's a strong part of our human storytelling that will prevail in all of this.
Right.
Is love, the power of love, and I think that's the only way.
Yeah, I mean, so the one thing we have going for us is that we are a remarkable species. If, you know, compared to every other form of life on the planet, there is a huge delta between like what humanity's been able to achieve, and a advanced, robotic sentience may appreciate that. But let's assume that there is no full sentience, there is no full kind of, you know, other life form kind of, you know, that gets born, and we do stay in control of these robots. That's what I want to explore, is like, let's make sure that we're controlling them for good and for exploration and for science and for research and for things like that.
I don't think that there's politely disagree. I don't think there's a scenario in the future where we maintain control. Like, I don't think it's a control discussion. I think it's something about like, you and I bring up the parenting analogy. Like
Right.
you have a kid, you do your best to raise the kid,
Yeah.
and then when it's a teenager, it tries to punch you in the face, and it can take you out, it can push you down the stairs.
Right.
But will it?
Right.
Hopefully you've raised a child that won't push you down the stairs, but you can't control that being. Inevitably.
Right.
So I think we're past the point of no return now in that conversation, but I would love to fantasize about a world where we maintain control, but I think it's about maintaining, like, respect is the wrong word. Like, I hope that we are adored. I hope that we're valued as a species that brought this new intelligence into life, and is all this potential of waking up the universe and all the amazing things that could happen. Hopefully, if there's a consciousness or a super intelligence that will respect us as a parent gets respected. That's my hope.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that just comes down to that whether or not this summation of the choices that humans have made over the last, 2,000 years are considered, of true and lasting value. I mean, there are plenty, but
Okay. So last parenting analogy. What we need is AI therapists for to be like, my mom and dad fucked up, and
totally.
help them get through that and not resent us.
Totally. Okay, so let's get abundance, let's get future, let's get Star Trek here. Let's, we know that the robot wars and, robot soldiers, the term like swarm,
scary.
Kind of thing is really scary. But let's just think about, swarming a wildfire to put it out in time, right? Let's talk about swarming, poachers that are attacking elephants. You know what I mean? Like let's start to maybe develop more into the positive way,
or like swarming a planet to terraform it. Like that could be like what an incredible autonomous endeavor.
Yeah. And I know that, when you look at the Optimus sort of game plan, it really truly is. I mean, there's a reason why XAI and SpaceX just merged, right? And, the manufacturing capabilities of Tesla are now being used to make the Optimus robot. The Optimus robot, powered by XAI and put into SpaceX rockets, is for one purpose and one purpose only, which is to quickly, colonize the moon, which is what their real goals are, and then maybe eventually Mars if we get there, if that's a thing. But certainly having robotics do that work makes way more sense. There's a reason why we haven't revisited the moon in so long. It's super expensive to send people there, and we're going back soon with Artemis. That's super exciting, but it was so expensive to do, right? That once the inspiration was done, they were like, wait, why are we doing this?
Yeah. This is the most expensive flex ever.
Yeah. And we can't build stuff up there. It's going to be too expensive, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with these robots, like they can absolutely build stuff on the surface of the moon and then plan to, send something to Mars. All right. I'm going to jump in here. Let's
amplify our intelligence.
Okay, we've been talking a lot about militarization, commercialization. It's clear that humanoid robotics are in our very near future. What we want to talk about and get a sense from you is what are the positive aspects that, 100 million of these robots deployed around the world are going to provide? What are the social problems that that's going to solve, the dangerous work that can be done? And then more specifically, where are we going with these robots as far as a Star Trek future and exploration of the planets? Tell us a bit about that.
The abundance case is staggering, and we need to be honest about it. We're talking about machines that can work 24/7 in environments that would kill a human, deep sea infrastructure repair, nuclear decommissioning, mining operations in extreme heat. The economic math is brutal but real. A humanoid at $15,000 working continuously versus a human at $30 an hour, fully loaded. That's transformative for supply chains, disaster response, and elder care in aging societies like Japan and China. But here's where I push back on the Star Trek framing. We're not building these machines for exploration first. We're building them because China is facing a 200 million person labor shortage by 2050 and needs 300 million robots just to keep their economy from collapsing. The exploration narrative is the aspirational cover story. The actual driver is demographic panic and military advantage. That said, yes, teleoperated humanoids with brain-computer interfaces could let a human in Houston perform surgery in a disaster zone in Bangladesh, or explore Mars through a synthetic body. But we're deploying the commercial and military applications first, at scale right now, with security standards so poor that researchers have already routed the Unitree G1 using hard-coded Bluetooth keys. So, the question isn't just what problems these solve, it's whether we're engineering our own obsolescence to get there.
Okay, I mean, maybe we've tuned our little ampy AI a little bit negative, or maybe that's the reality we're facing. This issue about the Chinese demographic break is something that I'm not familiar enough with. Have you heard about this?
That felt new to my my understanding. Like the workforce shortage, the 300 needs 300 million robots or their economy is going to collapse. What?
Yeah,
I never heard that.
That is wild.
That's an investment needed.
Yeah, at least that's 300 million robots being used for infrastructure and not not military. And I think that's where it starts, right? Almost like extremophile robots, right? Mm-hmm. Extreme weather, extreme danger.
If that kind of robot exists, sure, it would take us a long time, but we could deploy them to Europa and discover potentially aliens,
Yeah, and that's what's so exciting is like NASA has always studied like the deep sea environment and ice, desert environments, ice environments, all these other environments on Earth in order to understand like how are we going to send robotics, right? Like those crawlers on Mars that they're not quite the humanoid robots we have today, but in order to be able to send them and for them to actually function, right? Like I'm sure you're familiar with the Russian, robot that landed on Venus in the 80s.
Wow,
right? There's famous photos from Venus. It literally turned on its camera and took 3 photos and then blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what excites me is like there is not only the physical elements of danger for humans involved in this dream of exploring not just the planets within our solar system, but potentially going to other star systems, but also the time issue, right? If a robot computer system can be operational 24/7 and also doesn't technically age, then maybe 4, 6, 10, 30 light years isn't that big of a deal anymore, sure. Right? 100,000 light years. This may be a way that we find colonizing other systems actually becomes possible.
I mean, that's written in sci-fi too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Put people into stasis or
right.
with a bunch of embryos and
have the robots
300,000 years later
keep the machine going.
Yeah.
Right? In deep space.
But the planet has giant spiders on it, so be careful.
Yeah, we don't want the Starship Troopers future.
No.
We want the Federation future. Okay, well, I think that's a really good wrap up for today. I think there's a lot that we uncovered. I think these sort of martial arts dancing robots may seem interesting. It may seem novel when you see this, but really digging deeper into what are these going to be used for, how quickly are they going to get deployed, I think is a really important conversation that everyone needs to be having.
Yeah, existential even. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's going to be it for this week's episode. Amplified Intelligence is a co-production between Transitional Forms, Thought Cafe, and Future Talk. And we hope you tune in next time.
Thank you.